All right, so this is the Brown Duke Gun Show. My name is JP Garcia, here today with Brandon Elias, and wanted to get into what happened last week with the Minnesota shooting. Another sad day in the community, and we hate mass shootings. I hate mass shootings. All gun owners, this is not something that anybody condones. And really, it bears talking about what types of things do we think will really help move the needle with regard to reducing the number of mass shootings, especially school shootings. Because you and I are both parents. We don't want that.
Right.
We don't want anybody with us to be affected by that at all. We don't want anybody to be affected by that at all, really. But I think the hardest part about talking about this stuff is that it's so easy for people to say, let's get rid of all guns, right? On one side. And then it's so easy for the other side to say, give everybody guns, right? And I don't think either of those are really the answer.
No.
And
like you said it earlier, like reduce the amount of shootings, right?
Yeah.
So like there's no world that we're going to live in where it's not going to have any shootings or any deaths, right? Like if it's not shootings, it's something else. So I think just finding things that would reduce it is what we're looking for. And that's the goal. And I hope that people like see that, where they're not like thinking, hey, it's going to completely eliminate them.
Right.
I don't think it will ever happen. Like it's like, we can be real. It's not going to stop.
Correct.
Ever.
Right.
Like, even if it's not shooting, it's something else.
Well, and I think, I think one of the truths about living in America, right, is we have the Second Amendment. And however you feel about that, firearms are out there, right? And firearms are in a lot of folks' hands legally. And, the vast percentage, 99% plus firearm owners, never have an altercation, never have any sort of occasion to bring them out for defensive purposes, right? Let alone doing, mass heinous crimes with them, right? I think that it's, it's unrealistic to think that we're going to do what other countries have done and just do a mass confiscation, right? Because like being real, taking off my Pro 2A hat, right? And just looking at this as, from above, if you try to take away firearms from the country, it will spark a lot of violence. A lot of violence.
It would break up the country. Like
it certainly would.
No longer be a country.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, not being,
and it won't fix anything. I mean, like look in Europe, they have knife attacks all the time.
Sure.
Right. So like, it's not going to stop anything.
Right.
It's just going to create more chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. And really it's, I just think the argument for taking away every single gun is a non-starter, right? Yeah. Because we have to also look at the fact that, there are criminals, and, just because we say, hey, let's take away the guns, the people who are following the laws are going to, maybe give up their guns. Let's take that assumption. But the people who don't follow the law are not.
Yeah. Not
right. And so, we're talking about the, the school shooting in Minnesota today, but that's completely separate issue than the day-to-day crime that happens, between gang-related violence, drugs, that kind of thing, anything, the organized crime, all of that stuff still exists. And, good luck taking their guns away, right? I mean, they clearly don't follow the laws anyway. I don't think, some magic edict from the federal government is going to make them change what they do.
Right. And guns just the thing that they're going after right now because it's the most effective at, lethal force. So the next thing, it could be a laser gun, or it could be like AI, or it could be a robot. Like that's the next generation of weapons. Like then they're going to be after that, right? So it's never going to stop. It's just like you have to try to control what you can control and try to like, I think the biggest thing is what we're about to talk about, I guess, is the people.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
trying
to do the patterns of that.
And that's the hardest part of it, right? Is that, so, and I'll post the link to my search if anybody cares to see it, right? But so in the land of AI, right, I asked two different sources of AI. what would be the most impactful areas to research in order to maximize the reduction of mass school shootings, right? So very specific mass school shootings. And, I asked it to include aspects, but not limited to use and abuse of drugs, mental health, authorized versus unauthorized, access to firearms, legal purchase restrictions, law enforcement, watch lists, socioeconomic factors, shooter's family, target demographics, all of these things, right? And so, to give everybody the cliff notes, this particular AI, I used Claude.ai for this one. It looked at 323 sources, okay? And it took 11 minutes to complete its analysis. And so just to give people an idea of sources, you can check this online for yourself if you want to. But sources included FBI.gov, secretservice.gov, National Institute of Health, right? So these are real sources, not just somebody's blog or, we're not looking at just, Second Amendment friendly sites here. I mean, there are tons and tons of, sites here on both sides. I only say that to say that I think that the research that Claude did was pretty comprehensive, and the prompt that we used was really neutral to try to really get an idea for what looks like it could be something that could be statistically significant, right? And so
I think both of us think it the same way too. Like, we're not some like backwoods people that's like, oh, let's give guns to everybody, right? But we're definitely pro 2A, but we're not the, I don't know, like the give everybody guns type person. Like, we both have kids, like you said, they both go to school, they go to church, things like that. So like, obviously, like, we're very passionate fathers, and we want to see like all kids. We care about all kids.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely a soft spot for both of us.
Well, and look, being real, I mean, we could devolve this conversation real quick at this point, because it's like you and I have both seen plenty of people who don't need to have guns, or who don't need to be carrying guns at their current skill level, right? Like, and these are people who are on the level. They're, they're regular folks who just want to learn how to shoot a gun. It's like, okay, hey, you're not ready to carry this gun yet, right? There's training and all that kind of stuff involved. So, you and I are both in agreement in that there's, even just for normal, folks who want to carry a gun legally, there are hurdles. Like, you need to have some level of training.
The hurdles are there for the reason. Like, that's who sets, like, if you're willing to go through the hurdles, you're probably like the person that should have the gun, right? Like, we see that all the time, where it might be people come into the range and they say, oh, I've been shooting my whole entire life. Like, why do I need to go through a safety briefing? You're the person I'm worried about, right? Because like, you probably should not have a gun,
right?
Because you already think that you know everything. Whereas you have a person that's never touched firearm before, or like had showed up and they have shotguns before, but they show up and say like, teach me like I've never shot a gun before. They're the people that are willing to learn, and they're willing to take the steps in order to do the right thing. Yeah. Right. So like, that's the people that should have firearms in these situations. People ask all the time, like, why can't teachers carry guns? It's because like, most of the teachers that I know, like, I wouldn't want them carrying a gun. Right. Because they're too comfortable, and they'll like, oh, I'm going to carry it inside my purse, and I'm going to leave my purse in the classroom and go and make copies of a paper somewhere. Yeah. Right. Like, I was a student at one time, like, teachers always left the room. Sure. Right. And they'd have students go and mess around on their desk. Like, so you can't give a teacher a gun that's going to leave it in their desk and just because like, oh, now every teacher can carry a gun. Right. You can't do that. Like, that's a horrible idea. But if you say, hey, teachers can carry a gun if they go through these classes and go these number of hours of training.
You have to be certified.
You have to go on your off time, not paid. Like, during the summer, if you go for 1 week of training at this place, then you can carry a gun for the rest of the year. And every year you have to redo it, just like police. Sure. Like that. Those people that are willing to do that should have a firearm, because they're going to take it seriously. Right. They're not going to leave the gun in their classroom. They're going to be like, no, this is like, I went through all this work in order to do it. Right. So I'm going to make sure I take it seriously.
Plus the vetting process that you'd have to go through, right? I mean, the background checks and stuff that you would say, okay, look, if you're going to be a teacher who carries a gun, you've got to go through extra checks, right? Like, we need to make sure those teachers aren't going to go postal.
Same thing with concealed carry.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, look at the people that come in is like, well, why do I have to go through a class? This is BS. Like, I don't want to sit the whole entire day through the class. they don't, then they should not have a firearm, right?
Yeah.
Like they should not do it because they're thinking that I should just do it automatically and it should be given to them, but they're unwilling to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Right. They're not willing to grasp that information and take a step back and like learn from someone.
Yeah.
But the people that are willing to go through that class, like whenever they go to the class and they get in the class, they're completely accepting of the information. They usually learn something, and they're much more like responsible and like understand like, hey, I'm not just gonna pull a gun out on someone.
Yeah.
Like anytime you hear someone like brandishing a firearm or pulling a gun out on somebody, it's usually not a concealed carry permit holder.
Right.
It's usually someone that has a gun in their car and flashes a gun to somebody because they're like, oh, I can do this. Like,
Right.
no, you can't.
No.
You can't just
cannot.
flash a gun to someone because you're upset at them, or you're road raging, or you're scared, or like think that you're scared, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, or like I'm going to show them. Like,
Right.
no, you need to make sure you know what's justified and what's not. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to go back to your point about, being humble and
Yep.
and looking for training, the people that I've seen ask to teach me like I've never shot a gun before, I've seen at your range a Navy SEAL
Yep.
say that. I've seen SWAT team members say that.
Delta
right?
Force operator.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so these aren't just nobody people.
Right.
These are the highest of the, high level law enforcement, military, being humble and asking. So they have a lot more training probably than I do.
Yep.
Right. But they're asking because they're trying to keep learning. So
Exactly.
you
Like,
don't,
they actually signed up for a private lesson and paid me to teach classes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I want to sign up for a private lesson right now. Like, didn't even ask like credibility or anything. It's like, I want to learn something new. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the people at the highest level of military or police, that's the ones that's why they're there. Right?
Right.
Because they're willing to learn, they're willing to push the limits and like want to know more information. They're never stop learning something. They're humble enough to understand that like, if I stop learning, then I don't get better.
Yeah.
Right. So I can learn something from someone somewhere around.
yeah,
About, right?
absolutely. And that's what you want. You want
That's what you
people
want.
who are constantly trying to, make themselves better, and I think even if you're a teacher who wants to carry, you have to have a level above that. You need to have, your mental health evaluated, which we'll get into a little bit because, it's one thing to carry to protect yourself, but if you're carrying at a school, you're looking to protect others at that point. And that's really a step above. Right.
Yeah.
So
It's a whole other responsibility. The same responsibility that police have.
absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
yep.
And so, to that end, that's why I don't think, and you and I agree on that. It's like, I don't think every teacher needs to have a gun.
Right.
Because that's not part of their job or training. And they should only very specifically self-select into it. Should they, and take it so seriously and have extra training and extra background checks to ensure,
Yep.
that they're ready for that responsibility.
I had a SWAT guy in the range one day, and we were talking about something, like something about mindset issues. Then another customer was like, yeah, that's what might, make sure that you can go home. Like, you need to make sure you go home at the end of the night. And the guy was like, I need to make sure I protect other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what he's like, that's the biggest responsibility. Like, it's not about me, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to go home, obviously, but like, in order to protect other people's lives, like, I can't go to their parents' house and be like, hey, I didn't do my job,
Right.
and now your kid suffered from it, right?
Right.
That's the big responsibility. And once you accept that, it's bigger than what you are.
Sure.
Right? So like,
Yeah.
that's the people that you want carrying guns.
Right. And that's not, again, we're not trying to glorify one side or the other. It's
No.
just like, it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. Exactly. Yep.
so-
So if you're not willing to do that, then you shouldn't go through all the training and everything. And you're not going to go through it because it's not important to you.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like,
that's okay.
If you
It's fine.
recognize that, that's okay. Again,
That's
not everybody needs to carry a gun.
Yep. Exactly.
But so now looking at this research from AI and pulling on 323 different sources, here's what, here are the areas that AI identified could be the top areas for research to try to prevent mass school shootings. And the first one is, I think, something that we've seen across the country, school-based prevention programs. It says universal school-based prevention programs demonstrate the strongest evidence base with random control trials showing 29% reductions in violent behavior for high school students. This is from PubMed. And so what this is, these are your school shooter prevention programs, your safety programs, all of this stuff. And just anecdotally seeing it in our elementary schools, being implemented, having the drills, just like a tornado drill, just like a, fire drill, those kinds of things. Yes, I get the argument that say we shouldn't have to have this. You're absolutely right. We shouldn't have to. But again, it's a thing now, and we are having these. And realistically, look, if you were to take away guns tomorrow, we would still have to have these. Why? Because criminals are still going to have guns.
We shouldn't have to have fire alarms either, but guess what?
Yeah, we practice. And unfortunately, it's a thing we have to practice. And the evidence shows that they work, right? So whether it's deterrent and or protecting more lives, whatever, but, strong evidence showing that school-based prevention programs work. So keep doing that. Keep doing that. Let's pour, if our friend Blake Miguez is listening to this, have the government pour more money into it when you are a U.S. senator.
That's right.
By the way, BlakeMiguez.com. Vote for Blake. Let's see. Going down here, highest priority research areas that offer the greatest prevention potential. So the first one is crisis intervention research. And so this is a hot button thing because it's something people don't want to talk about. But, people who perform mass shootings are somehow mentally impaired, right? They're because if you think about just raw percentages, the number of gun owners there are in the country, right? The number of firearms there are available versus the number of school shootings, it's, a vast, it's a vast chasm, right? 99+% of people who own guns and have guns and carry guns day to day are not doing these things, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that some people are, and we want to prevent that, right? Yep. So it seems that longitudinal crisis intervention research emerges as the single highest priority, given that 80% of attackers display observable crisis behaviors beforehand. Can we do something to turn this around? Can we do something to prevent this? And so I say this is a great place for people to actually spend real dollars and research this, with the caveat that this is something that can be weaponized against other people, right? So the question is, how do we implement
on both sides?
On both sides.
Yep.
Yeah.
On both sides.
It can be weaponized all over the place. So because what we're saying here is, if you observe some mental impairment, some, mental disparity of whether you're suicidal, whether you're, manic somehow or whatever, you probably shouldn't have a gun, right? And probably should be doing something to help you with that, right?
Yep.
And if you have these observable crises signs, then, you should be observed, particularly if you're talking about doing mass school shootings and stuff. But on the other hand, how do you implement that without making it weaponizable to people who just want to say, I don't want you to have a gun, so I'm going to call you mentally ill or crazy?
Yeah. So like usually people say like the red flag laws, right? Like they brought that up. And yeah, that's a bad thing, because if you, like, anybody can say, well, I don't like that person, or that person did something to upset me, so now I'm going to say that they're crazy and they shouldn't have a firearm and take away all their rights. You can't let that happen, right?
Yeah.
But you also can't let the side where it's like, if they are crazy or if they're not mentally stable, that someone's too afraid to say something because they're going to get like, and
they're, the pro 2A community is going to come after them and say, hey, you're.
So like, I do think there should be some type of repercussions. If you just say like, hey, this person's crazy, and they do some type of investigation, and it shouldn't be anything on the person that you're saying on their dollar, right? Because then it's just going to drain them, and we're going to run around in circles and, make everybody bankrupt, right? Because of it. But if there's no claims to that, then they should get some type of repercussions of like, you can't do that, right? Whether it be like a little slap on the wrist or something, but they need to have something that's going to be put in place to make sure that people don't do it.
Certainly.
But it can't be so strict that everyone's afraid to say that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to play both sides.
You absolutely do. Right. And that's the hardest part of this all, is that, the real answers to helping to reduce this crime are very dirty.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not a clean cut thing. You know, a lot of people are going to say ban guns, right? And it's like, but banning guns, you know, we had the Brady bill or whatever that had that assault weapon ban. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. The assault weapon ban is a different thing, but we had that forever. It's sunset. And why didn't they implement it back? Well, because it really didn't show much movement. So when I looked in AI, it said it had a modest improvement, right? But if in this research project that I did, you know, banning weapons is not even statistically significant in, you know, with respect to doing something like, you know, observable crisis behavior mitigation, right? So essentially, if you see somebody who's, you know, who looks crazy and they're talking about shooting up a school, you got to take them seriously.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like there should be, if there's something like that and, you know, you look into it and they're like, oh, it was just a joke. It's like, well, you can't joke about that. Like you have to have some type of repercussions for doing that, right? For saying that, just go through it, because you can't just let people start hiding behind that. Like it was a joke, or I was just kidding or whatever. Like if you're starting to post pictures, like this shooting, the guy had written on magazines, like for the children and stuff like that. Like you see someone with that, they need to be like, have something to go on their record. Right?
Like the police should probably talk to the guy.
Like, well, they should be like arrested. Like they should have to go through something and have to, like, you can't do that. Right? Like that's not funny. It's not a joke. This is serious stuff. You have to have some type of repercussions that's going to get them in trouble, or have to deal with some type of law enforcement agency for doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
But then also the flip side of that is like, what is something that is, that you shouldn't say versus what is something that is First Amendment, right? Because we have the First Amendment and you can say whatever you want to a certain extent.
Right.
You can't, but what you can't say that you're making threats on people.
Exactly.
Right? Like, because if you say you're going to kill the president, you're going to have FBI people at your house.
Yeah. You write for the children on a magazine that's, have ammo, like that's a threat.
Yeah.
Right. So no, you can't do that.
Right. And yes, there should be repercussions for that.
Exactly.
And even though it's politically inconvenient for whoever side, we got to follow through with that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because these are the things that can prevent, right? And I think we need to really look into that kind of stuff. So the next thing is, the next thing it talks about here is threat assessment effectiveness research. I mean, this is kind of the same thing. Secret Service is finding that 69% of concerning behaviors are observed by their peers. So, it looks like almost 70% of the time, the people perpetrating these crimes are talking about it with their friends and talking about it. They're, I guess, bragging about it or doing whatever, And so how do we get that 70% of people to speak up about it, right? So that the authorities can be alerted, So,
but not so much to where other people's like, oh, well, they said this and they're actually lying.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
It, so.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like you can't have like an anonymous hotline because that gets weaponized too.
Exactly.
Imagine,
you can't have anonymous. There has to be like someone is responsible for it.
Like, hey, I'm saying that this person had this thing, and if you go, find out, it's like part of it is how heavy-handed you come on if they were wrong. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you have to have some type of repercussions if they're wrong.
Yeah.
Like if they're like just doing it just to get back at someone.
Yes.
That's a problem.
Correct. Yeah.
But, and they need to have like something in the justification part, like, or judicial part that is they're going to commit a crime for doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. Like slander or whatever it might be.
Well, but I guess the other part though that I can think of is that what if, okay, so we're, you and I are high school buddies and, one of our high school guys is like, oh, he's writing this kind of stuff. And you and I say, hey, this guy, he's writing all kinds of crazy stuff. Brandon and JP say, hey, you need to look at this guy. Well, they end up looking at this guy. This guy is he's just a jerk and he's just writing stuff, but he had, evaluated no intent of actually doing anything. You can't come back too hard on the reporters either.
No, but like if he's writing stuff like that and that guy says, oh, it's just a joke, then he needs to like have some type of, like they need to go after him, even if it's a joke. Like we can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't just hide behind that. But if it's nothing, if they just made it up, if the two people made it up,
there's no evidence. Yeah, exactly.
Then that's an issue.
So I mean, and that's where things get messy, right? It's that it's the weaponization one way or the other, because you could just be, so let's say that type of program was in place, right? And now you just don't like somebody, right? I mean, you and I both know of a story of somebody who just it happened where they got their concealed carry permit pulled because somebody told a story. And it's like, okay, well, that person still is going through and trying to live through it, and it's like,
just because someone said something, lied about something, So you should have some type of repercussions for that, but you gotta it's sticky.
It's sticky, and the problem is every case has to be looked at.
Exactly.
And right now, the system as it is is overloaded. It's not equipped to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, right? So,
and it's not something that you can turn into an AI thing where it simplifies it.
No,
because it's case by case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. AI, as much as we use it and we talk about it and it's great, AI can be fooled.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
And AI can be wrong. And that's what a lot of people don't know about AI. It's like, hey, you know what? There's a strong percentage that AI is not correct.
Remember the commercial where you looked it up on Google, and they were oh, well, this one said it, and it's oh, really? I forgot what the commercial was, but it was the biggest thing. It was a Super Bowl commercial or something, and it's well, the internet said it.
Yeah.
So it's oh, it must be true if the internet said it.
Exactly.
It's the same thing with AI.
Well, it's the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. And and those kinds of things, you can speed up the automation of identifying potential threats with AI, but you still have to have people to go investigate it and make sure. Number one, because if there's any way that we can get in front of it and AI or whatever intervention thing says, hey, this person could be a thing. Hey, let's go investigate that person, you know? But at the same time, you can't just be, because I could see it happening this way. It's you just, have some buddies or whatever trying to play a joke on you. It's like, hey, dude, he's report him to the school shooter thing, and then it becomes a huge issue, right? And it's just a bunch of jerks that were trying to screw with somebody. I could see that happening too. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. But that's why I think talking about these kinds of things as pro 2A people, we need to realize what's really going to move the needle here. Another thing here, high impact, medium term research, online radicalization, that is a huge thing. And it's not just for these school shootings, but it's also for, other sorts of domestic terror, that kind of thing, non-ideological radicalization through antisocial online networks, those types of things. I mean, yes, let's figure that out. But again, it goes back to how do you intervene, and then also make it a system where it's not weaponizable against innocent people, right? So I think we said enough about that. Let's see. School security. We talked about school security. I'm trying to think here. I think one of the main things that we should mention here again is that the bans, because that's where if you're not a gun person, I mean, it does make some logical sense that, okay, well, if we take weapons away from everybody, then it fixes the problem. It's well, not exactly, right? Because number one, I mean, that's like saying, there are too many car accidents, let's just take away cars.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
And, we are the U.S. and me as a 2A person saying, look, taking guns away from people is not going to happen.
And it's if you take away cars, then horse and buggies are going to crash. Something's going to happen.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not going to just completely stop.
But you do take guns away from drunk drivers.
Yeah.
Or not guns.
Cars.
Cars away from drunk drivers.
Exactly.
And you do take guns or cars away from people who don't have any business. Maybe they're even too old to drive. So you take away that. So, I think that, as we've seen it in the 2A community where we hold to, you can have guns as long as you want and blah, 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 blah. It's well, do we? Do we need to have that? Because there are certain times where we take away firearms from, or automobiles from people who can't operate them, right? So we, probably need to.
What is that? like where's the limit? You know, like
Exactly.
What do we need to do in order to see if they're fit or not?
Yeah. Yeah. The one last thing that I do want to mention, and it's kind of a spicy one. I mean, not that the rest of this isn't spicy, right? But the one thing that I think we can do as gun owners is, I saw a statistic, and it's not on this particular study, but I did see that a large percentage of school people who perform school shootings, right, they get their firearms at the house from unsecured firearms, right? And so the moral of the story here is, if you have guns in the house and you have kids in the house, lock your guns up.
Yeah, like you're responsible for that firearm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Especially if you're not there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Like if something happens with that gun and someone that should not have firearms gets it, like that's on you.
Yeah.
Right? That's on your hands. So
yeah,
you're responsible for it. Make sure you lock it up. Make sure you have it in the right spot. Like you can't make something completely theft proof. Like if they want something bad enough, eventually they'll steal it.
Yeah.
You know, but like if it's just out in the open and you're not doing anything, then that's a problem.
Certainly.
You know.
Well, and there's the argument, well, I need to have access to it if something blah blah blah. It's like, okay, that's fine, but you're still at the house.
Yep. Or have it on you.
It's on you,
yep.
right? So it's on you or in your control somehow, like even if it's whatever. But if it's just out, if you have a rifle that's just on the wall or whatever, and you leave the house, then and you don't have control of who, like, okay, you have teenage kids coming over and you're not there all the time or whatever. Like, what are you doing? Like, protect your weapons.
Same thing with guns and vehicles, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you leave a gun in your vehicle overnight and don't lock your doors, then like that's on you. That's your responsibility. Like, you need to make sure that you take the gun out of your vehicle at night and go put it in the house and make sure it's locked up and secured. You can't just leave it out for everybody to get. You know?
No, there was a podcast, actually, an early podcast from the guys at Shiloh in Texas. And one of the guys, I think his name's Gary, he always said, this was one of his things. He said, your car is not a safe.
Right.
Right. And that's, you can't speak more truth than that, right? Because cars get broken into all the time.
All the time.
And those guns get taken out all the time. So it's like, okay, well, just for the convenience or the laziness of not wanting to bring it in.
Yeah.
You're basically providing, untethered access to a firearm. All they have to do is break open the window.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, or open up the door. Like they don't even lock the vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? Like they just leave the vehicle unlocked and they just pull on door handles and it's like, oh, it's unlocked. Let's see what's in here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a firearm. Let me take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that should not be a thing.
Right. Well, I mean, even like, you look at, my house, right? All of firearms locked up, but then, I do have, access to my open pistol, right? But the trick is, where's all the ammo?
Yeah.
The ammo's at the range.
There's nothing going there.
There's no ammo that's even within 3 miles.
Yeah.
That's, since this is a gun I dry fire, it's like, okay, I don't have any ammo at the house for this gun.
Yep.
So that's extreme. But the point is, if there are kids running around, if there are, kids all the way to teens, whoever, basically, if it's your gun and and you're not there for, to protect that gun somehow, then you need to secure that gun. It needs to be in a safe, right? Because clearly there are statistics showing that mass shootings are happening with people using unsecured guns, right? And so that is an easy thing on the two-way side that can be fixed.
Yep. That I think for sure, like we need to have more responsibility with that as 2A people that own guns. And then also like the joking things with like, you see people like engrave stuff on guns, like smile, wait for the flash or whatever. Like, and they like laugh about it. It's like, that's whatever. Like, I know you're not serious about it, but also like that doesn't look good on gun owners, right? Like you doing things like that does not look good for us because like you're making guns a joke and they're not a joke, right? Like it's a serious thing that we use for self-defense. So like, don't make it into something that's not, you know, like keep it serious to where people have more respect for it rather than just like, haha, that's funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's coming from a guy who has a serial number on my gun that says splits get chicks.
Yeah. But like,
right. But it's true. It's true.
Yeah,
like you want to take it seriously.
That is like a joke for like, you hear the constant things of like, trespassing, like,
we don't call the cops.
Yeah. We don't call the cops or whatever. Like you put up that signs and stuff and like, haha, that's funny. But like, if you actually put up the sign and like you actually shoot someone, like that does not look good for you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you shouldn't have those signs like just around your house or something like it. And sharing them. Like, it just doesn't look good for gun owners.
Well,
right?
I mean, we talk about this before, right? Responsible gun ownership. And then, to the point where you're carrying to protect yourself and your loved ones. It's like, that's a mental journey as much as it is a learning of a skill for shooting a firearm, right? It's like, you have to bring yourself to the point. You have to be, realize that where this ride is going to take you.
Yeah. Like, you have to be in that mindset. Like, this is a serious thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to joke about it. This is what it's for.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, make no mistake, like, you have to, there's an extra responsibility that comes with that.
Yeah.
Right. So, to that end, like, look, you can't just leave your firearms lying around.
Right.
You just can't.
Yeah. Like, be the better person, take it more seriously and get more training and like take it the way it should be taken rather than being the jokester or something. Like, I think we can do that as a 2A community.
Better. Yeah, for sure. Well, and the other thing as a 2A community, it's this type of discussion is super hard because as soon as you have somebody on the pro 2A and versus the, anti 2A, it's so hard for those two to have a regular discussion like you and I talking right now. Right. Because, it is, I mean, this is an emotional thing, right? A school shooting is not anything that anybody wants.
Right.
It's not, right? And, and those who are anti-gun, it's like, okay, well, that'll fix the problem. It's like, yes, but no. I mean, you're looking at the implement which which actually committed the crime, the weapon used, but you're not looking at how we got to where we're committing the crime.
Right.
Right. And the thing that I always thought about doing, but I've never had the resources to do it actually is, taking a loaded gun, which you shouldn't do, and putting it under a jar, and having a camera on it 24/7, right? Like, completely loaded, safety off, which you should never do. Don't do this. But if you did, and you showed that gun, it's like, okay, 15 years, this gun hasn't shot anybody, right? Well, of course, who has to pull the trigger? Somebody has to pull the trigger,
right?
And so really what we're getting at is, we have to get past the fact that the gun was the implement to be used in the crime. We have to get to, why are these people committing these crimes? And can we identify the people committing the crimes before it happens?
Sooner, yeah.
Yeah, sooner, right? And more effectively, and in a way that doesn't unfairly accuse innocent people.
Exactly. Yep.
That's the hard part.
That's the hard part. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I put that out there not knowing what the answer is.
Yeah, we don't know what the answer is, but that's yeah.
But I think that's what the discussion needs to be.
It does. Yep.
So I don't know.
That's a discussion that needs to be happening to where we can come up with a reasonable answer.
Right. Yeah. Because, I mean, as a 2A guy, it's, if you presented me, and I'm wide open to this, right? If you presented me a way that we could do that, and it would prevent these mass shootings, like, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And even if it's a compromise saying, okay, look,
it has to be a compromise.
Yeah.
Because if it's not a compromise, it's going to be unfair.
Correct.
On one side. Because like we just said, how it can go either way.
Yeah.
So if it's not a compromise, then it's going to be way too much on one side.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, a lot of times people talk about the waiting period on a gun. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't like a waiting period on a gun, but if we can show statistically that would improve it, like, I'd be open to it, but unfortunately that hasn't been shown to be statistically significant. Right. I mean, a lot of these crimes take premeditation, and they plan it out, and they, clearly if they're showing evidence of, being somebody that leans towards doing a mass shooting, then, they're thinking about this for years. Yeah.
And when was the last time like someone went and bought a gun and then went directly after that? Like, I've never heard of that.
I don't know.
They usually always have the gun way in advance.
Yeah. The ones that you hear about, and it's going back to that last point that we're making, the ones that you hear about, like the reactionary or like the ad hoc type of shootings, are like people who just take a gun off, from someone else, and they just go and have a rampage.
Yeah.
And it's, not usually, and I will have to look it up because you'll probably prove me wrong here, but not usually are they going from the gun store immediately to go do the mass shooting.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a hard one, but I mean, I think that really, if we're going to do something about this is where the conversation needs to go.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
yep.
I don't know. So if you have thoughts about that, or if you have input, let's put it out there. Let's start having the discussion. And I'll just say this, like our 2A brethren, just let's, people always say like common sense gun laws and blah, blah, blah. It's like the reason why the 2A community doesn't like common sense gun laws or that term, because the gun laws aren't usually common
They're
sense.
not, yeah.
Usually it's confiscation.
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
only thing that they're after is confiscation, right?
Yep.
And that's a non-starter.
Yep.
Just the same as like the 2A community is going to say arm everybody. That's also a non-starter.
Yep.
I just ask our side to just be open. If somebody presents you a real idea that's thought out, be open, because it's probably going to have some compromise that we don't like. It's probably going to have some compromise that they don't like. But if they can show, or if it can be shown, unequivocally that this is actually going to prevent something, then just at least be open to it.
Yeah.
That's all I say.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then say what you think would be better about it, or like,
Yeah.
Say, well, that this part could work, but this part couldn't. So let's change this part, like
Yeah.
compromise both ways. Yeah.
Well, and look, I'm being completely frank, taking this from the business world, right? You're not going to land on the perfect solution in the first go.
No.
Right? You're going to tune it, and just be open that this is a learning on everybody's side.
Yep.
How do we stay, a 2A community, the Second Amendment is not going away, period.
No.
Right? Yeah. So now, as modern people, how do we, live with that? Where people are going to have guns, because we want people to be safe and have guns and do all that if you're willing to be safe, but also protect our children from mass shootings.
Yep.
So anyway, this is a serious one, dude, but hopefully, people can start to open up and have real conversations about it.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
I agree.
So, all right. And if you want to have a real conversation about it, let us know.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Thanks.